years now, and I can't tell you, a big part of what my job is and was and will continue to be is business coaching, business development, focusing in the insurance agencies in the senior market. And I'll tell you, this is the number one conversation when somebody says, I'm wanting to grow. This is where a lot of growth comes from, when they've kind of like maxed out their systems, maxed out their processes, and they say, you know what, I love what I'm doing, but I'm ready to go to that next level. This is the conversation I really enjoy having. And so would love to hear from you guys. Just kind of give me where we're starting out now. Are you watching this because you're pretty certain you want to add downlines? Are you watching this because you're pretty certain you want to add administrative staff? I would love to hear kind of just like a baseline of what's bringing you to this presentation today. But let's go ahead and get started with the first slide. And again, this is when you're asking yourself and coming across stuff like, what does growth look like for my agency? There's basically, again, 3 things you have to take into consideration about what growth would look like. Number 1, what are your short-term and what are your long-term goals? Are your short-term goals like, are your goals like, I want to retire in the next 2 years? Are your goals, I want to grow to where I'm, right now I'm producing $300,000 of production this year. I now want to produce $800,000 this year. Is it, I want to bring other people into this industry, and I get my joy from watching other people be successful. Mm-hmm. So really determining what are your short-term and long-term goals. You might be surprised that what you think your solution is may actually be counterintuitive to that goal. Are you currently working at your highest efficiency? Are you using applications? Are you using certain apps and processes? Like for example, does anybody know what LastPass is? LastPass is a application that you can download to where you can share your passwords and usernames privately across multiple people with them actually not having to see your personal information. Are you using again, like Calendly, appointment setting processes? Are you using Facebook scheduling to the best of its abilities? We'll get into some more of that, but are you truly working at your peak efficiency? And last but not least, have you considered outsourcing? Outsourcing a lot of your busy work is a really great way to kind of get a little more juice for the squeeze. So maybe, have you tried outsourcing your social media? Have you tried outsourcing your appointment setting, your lead generating, things like that? There's a lot of things that you can do that are cheap, a lot of things that you can do that are quicker turnaround before you get to the point where it's time to discuss adding a downline or adding administrative staff.
Yes, for sure. This is stuff that's very basic of the basic, but these are 3 questions that if you don't already have figured out before you go ahead and start the hiring process, it can make it very messy later on. It can make it very unclear for your new hire, especially like that. What are your goals for them? What are your goals for you? That helps kind of set up boundaries between what will your role be and what will their role be. Also, working at the highest efficiency, that also makes sure that you have system and processes in place, so that way bringing them on is easier for them, adds less stress. So it's like they walk in, you're able to explain exactly how you do things, you have things set up, they don't feel frantic or anything like that. And then outsourcing, you don't want to hire someone on and then realize, oh, this one other person in my office might be able to do this, or like, oh, there's actually a business that it might be cheaper to have them do it, or it might just be easier to have them do it. So these are the basics of the basics, but they're things that have to be thought out and you have to have answers to before you even begin hiring or looking into what kind of person you want to hire.
Yeah, and we're getting some really great feedback. And Dean was saying that he wants to help his current downline grow. Kevin's mentioning he wants to add a downline. And Dean brings up a great point. A lot of people kind of go through this cycle. They start an agency, hire an assistant, bring on agents. It all depends on where that energy level is. And that's exactly what we're kind of wanting to bring to light today is growth looks differently depending on what you want your role to be. There's 100 ways to grow. We're going to talk about 2 options today.
Yes.
So let's start with adding downline agents and what your potential growth could look like and what to take into consideration if you decide that maybe adding downline agents are the way to go. Before we do this, I want to make I want to go into the technicalities of downlines. This is the boring part, but it's important to know your options. So right now there's basically 2 ways of adding a downline agent. One is a sub-agent and the other is an LOA, licensed only agent. A sub-agent means that they are in your hierarchy And they are, again, so the way that you get paid is if they write business, they get the majority of the commissions, and you get a point or two, sometimes that's 2 to 4 percentages off the top of that production. So they do, a sub agent does take a lower commission than if they were to go to direct to the carrier, or if they were to go directly to an FMO. They do take a lower commission, and you receive what we call overrides on that. The carriers pay the commissions. So you don't have to have accounting involved. You don't have to worry about the W-9s, the W-2s. You're not financing any of that. The carriers are paying them directly, and you receive an override. Downside to that, if they leave your agency, the business goes with them. They are the writing agents. They own that book of business. So there's less for them to keep you with your agency. So keeping that in mind, again, they own the business, they get paid, you get an override, you have less involvement as far as taxes and accounting goes. The other side of that, licensed only agents, aka LOA agents. LOA agents, that's exactly that. They are licensed to sell the business. However, all the business is owned by the hierarchy. So if you're an agency, they're an LOA under the agency. All commissions and all owners and all rights to that business go to the agency. Pros to that, obviously, is that if they decide to leave, if this industry is not for them, or they want to go work for someone else, you get to keep that book of business and you get to service that book of business. Downside, though, is that, again, you are now involved with paying them, whether you're paying them a W-2 or paying them with a 1099. You're now included and involved in that payment process, which can get really sticky. And again, that's can create a lot of tension between the owner and the LOA. So just keeping that in mind, those are kind of the two that I wanted to talk about, the two common ones, sub-agent versus LOA. Let's kind of get into what this looks like. So when should you add a downline agent? When is that should be? A lot of people think, I'm entirely too busy. I can't grow anymore. I can't possibly see any more clients. It's time for me to add a downline. And that's actually the exact opposite of when you should be adding a downline. Downline can equal growth, but you need to start adding a downline when you want to take not necessarily a back seat, but you're willing to take a step back from creating your own success and meeting new clients, and willing to invest in someone else's success. You're wanting to expand on the coaching aspect and the managerial aspect. So again, it doesn't mean if you as a human being are wanting to grow, adding downlines is not the way to accomplish that. Jim asked a great question. Is there a minimum a sub-agent needs? So Jim, that's a really great question. And it all comes down, each carrier will have different parameters. Some carriers will say this is the lowest amount of lowest commission you can give to a sub-agent. You can never give a sub-agent more or equal to commissions as what you have. There does have to be at least one level below you. Carriers will kind of set what their own basement is for that. If you're running to give multiple points under street, then I would actually probably recommend that you would go the LOA route instead. Yeah, and Dean says just before you hit that point, just before he wants to hit a point, that you have to make a choice between growth or lowering your client services. And we're actually going to talk about that more in the admin side of things, but absolutely, and what it looks like when you're adding an admin and when to do that. So we'll get to that in a second, Dean, but excellent point. So again, adding a downline, this is the biggest misconception. Adding a downline is not going to help you sell more. In fact, when you add a downline, especially in the beginning, you're going to sell less. And in fact, your income will be dependent on others. When you start adding downline agents, you are going to be, yes, you can still have the majority of your income come from you writing business, but a portion, and hopefully a growing portion of that income, will actually come from those overrides or from, again, your downline being more successful. So it truly is, I will say this, a lot of people don't expect this when you add a downline. You can expect a decrease in not only your production, but a decrease in your revenue, which is the really important number. You'll see a decrease in your revenue at least for the first year, if not longer, depending on how often you're adding downline, the amount of downline that you're adding, and how quickly you're adding them together. But you will see, at least for the first year, if not longer, a significant decrease in your revenue and in your production when you're adding on a downline person. You have to be able to support that agent. We'll talk about that here in a second. You have to be able to support them, make them feel, and offer them not just like resources like technology, leads, or whatever it is that you're offering them, but more importantly, your time to train and manage. And time is a resource that a lot of people don't take into consideration. If you're busy training your downline, that's less time you'll have being in front of clients. This is where you're used to getting your income from.
Yes, exactly. I feel like probably everybody has been in a job where they feel like they showed up and it was just kind of like, okay, you're here. They give you some basic stuff and they go, do it. And then they go off and they start worrying about their own stuff because they're a manager or they're whatever they are. I know I've had that job and it was simply because they did not take into account.
Not here though.
No, not here. My point being is that I didn't stay at that job very long because I didn't even have this simple basic like need or like the basic need of just being able to have access to the person that was supposed to be training me and telling me how to do my job. I left really quickly because I just simply didn't have the resource of time with the person that I needed training from. So that's a huge thing to make sure that you're willing to give up. You're willing to give up some of your time. You're willing to give up maybe some of your contacts, some of your clients to get them kicked off. So you're stepping back a little bit from your production and what you're doing as a selling advisor and investing your time and resources and all the stuff that you have built up into this other person.
And just to piggyback off of that, Dean is saying that you're not in competition with your downline. And that's something as salespeople, we're competitive. We're like, I want to have the most sales. I'm driven by those charts. You can't be in competition with your downline.
For sure.
And then to round that out, he says that some of the highest producers are the worst trainers and the worst managers. And I'll tell you why, because we as salespeople, we know what makes us money. So we want to do more of what makes us money. You know, training other individuals short term does not make us the income that me sitting down and writing an application does. So again, knowing that this is genuinely a long-term investment. Adding a downline can be incredibly profitable after those first year or first 2 years. If you can get somebody to a level of success, you can get multiple people to a level of success and they start again becoming more self-sufficient. It can be an incredibly lucrative opportunity. Again, you see like these agencies, look what FMOs do. FMOs can be incredibly lucrative. They don't ever write an application on their own. They do it all through these downlines. But again, if you're somebody like a lot of people will bring on a downline because they're like, okay, when I want to retire in like 6 months, you know, I want to bring on my son, my daughter, my niece, my nephew. I just want to bring on somebody to take over my book of business. It's a much longer process to do that for multiple different reasons. Obviously, the training, the education, all of that is one aspect of it, but also getting to build and incorporate them into your brand and build something to where your brand is what people are buying, not your service.
Right.
So just keeping that in mind. This is a long-term investment. We all know we were all sold. I don't know who here is new to the insurance industry, but a lot of people join the industry because they got you can make $100K in your first year.
Yeah.
So many people get sold that, and we all know that that's not necessarily true most of the time. So again, this is just understanding it as a long-term investment.
So with that, it's all about having the expectations whenever we add downline. This is basically exactly what we've been talking about. Thinking about the big picture, not thinking about your day-to-day, not thinking about what's happening today, how much money you're making today. Make sure that if you're adding a downline on, 1 or 2, or however many, you're thinking big picture, and this kind of goes hands in hand with the last slide. It's a long-term investment. It's not about what's happening right here today. It's about what's happening day to day that makes the big picture.
Like net growth. It's kind of like whenever like you're working out and like you're trying to lose weight, you don't take your weight every day. You don't, what's it called when you measure your weight and you stay on a scale, weigh yourself. You don't weigh yourself every day. You weigh yourself every few weeks to like once a month in order for that long-term success. It's kind of the same thing. Again, looking big picture. Also keep in mind, we've said it several times, take off your sales hat, put on your management hat. More importantly, put on your ownership hat. Looking at your return on investments, looking at your advertising costs, really making sure that you're focusing on what is the long-term return of investment on this. The last thing I will mention about adding a downline staff is there is a ton of turnaround right now with adding downlines. I I will say agents, because when somebody gets their insurance license, yes, they might come starting working for you, but they're still getting calls from other FMOs, other agencies, or seeing people on social media have great success as an independent agent. So there's always this concern of like grass is greener on the other side, because they genuinely will have the option to go wherever they want, and they're going to be told, AKA they're going to be sold, that they could do better or get more from somebody else. So make sure that not only are you offering these resources to your downline, but you're advertising and talking about all the resources that they get. Whether that's whether that is technology, training, whatever that is. You have admin staff that is helping them grow their business. You have, I know our sister company is a captive agency, and they offer trips, incentive, co-ops on leads. They do a ton of stuff, so they have really high agent retention. But I hate to say this because it sounds so sad, but there's really no loyalty anymore.
Right.
I have worked with so many people, like I taught them everything they know, and then they left, and now they're my competition. So making sure that you really focus on what resources that you're giving them, because keep in mind that override that you're getting from their business, that's them like buying something from you.
Sure.
That override that you're getting, you really need to be focused on how you're earning that override with your downline, because they could get a higher commission elsewhere. What are they buying from you that is a service that makes it worth working with you?
Yes, and also might I add that being open to hear the kind of resources, hearing the needs of that downline agent as well. You're one agent, you are bringing in someone else to your systems and processes. By the time you've gotten to this point, you've probably, you know what I mean, hopefully you've gone through those first steps of you have system and processes down, you have your way of selling, you have all that sort of stuff. Keep in mind that they're another human being with a different brain. Their process hopefully will fit into yours. It should fit into yours, but it might look slightly different. So also be willing to hear someone else that say, if they're saying, hey, this resource might actually be really good for, you know, the way that I do things or the way that I want to, be willing to hear that as well.
The worst thing you can do as a business owner is say, this is the way we've always done it, so this is the way we're going to continue to do it.
And that's exactly, yes.
You cannot do that. And so it's kind of whenever you're taking off that sales hat, putting on that ownership and management hat, there are skills to being a leader. There are skills to manage, and those skills, hate to say it, guys, do not always line up with the sales skills that you have. So just making sure that you are prepared to incorporate and to take on training yourself onto how to be a person people want to follow, be a leader that people want to follow, and then create a culture that people are willing to literally pay to be a part of when it comes to their overrides.
Yes, and I won't embark on this too much, but we are seeing the great resignation and all that sort of stuff. And you are seeing with like millennials and down that it's really mainly, it's a little bit less about the money, and it's a little bit more about the experience that they're having on their day-to-day work. If they don't feel supported, they're going to leave.
Yeah.
If they don't feel like the work environment is a place where they can grow and flourish in a healthy way, they're going to leave. Whether you like that or not, that's what we're dealing with our culture now. So just keep that in mind whenever you step into a manager role. The environment that you create, and that starts at the top, the environment that you create will play a huge part in whether you retain downlines or not.
Oh, absolutely. And so Dean's bringing up some really great points. First of all, he says we offer great trainings, which is always nice to hear. Thank you, Dean. Talking about, again, how he says that there's a service that his agency can't offer and his agency can't provide. He's always happy to, again, pass them over to us because he wants to make sure that they're getting taken care of and the expectations are met. That's like how you measure success. I can go into a whole spiel about this, but making sure you're setting the right expectations. So don't tell a downline they're going to make 100K their first year, because then even if they make 40K their first year, which is a really successful agent, they're going to be disappointed because they didn't hit that 100K.
Right.
So any other questions? Again, that's kind of our last point on adding a downline staff. Adding a downline agent. Again, a lot of misconceptions about what growth looks like through adding downlines. Any questions that you have on that? And Dean, I want to read your comments, but I'm going to move on really quick to the adding an administrative staff. This is something that I think a lot of people overlook And not only do they only look like, hey, is it time to add admin staff? I think more so they severely underutilize their current admin staff.
Yes.
In fact, I was meeting with an agency this week that they get 10 new clients a day. Like we're looking at his books. He was showing me he gets 10 new clients a day, has 9,000 agents with no like downline activity, or excuse me, 9,000 clients with almost no downline activity, and was asking, well, how do I grow? And it's, okay, what are you doing with your admin staff? And it was even somebody at that capacity where like, this is all the things your admin team can be working with you and doing for you.
Yeah.
So it's incredible. Again, severely underutilized. When should you add a downline staff? Excuse me, I keep saying downline. I don't want to confuse that. When should you add an admin team? The easiest way to do it, a lot of people ask me for specific numbers. I see this around 300. When you have 300 clients, that's really whenever adding an admin, I think you're almost overdue for it. That's whenever you should really have somebody on your team focusing on things that keep you busy. Mm-hmm. So the long word of saying this is when you're at max efficiency, but your processes are allowing you to stay too busy and not productive.
Yes.
If the majority of your time isn't sitting across from somebody and selling insurance because you're too busy prospecting, working on social media, networking, checking your current book of business, you can't meet with new people, it's time to add a downline. Or excuse me, it's time to add administrative class. Yes. We typically see that a lot of people around 300 clients.
Yes.
So again, when you're adding administrative staff, you still have to put on that managerial ownership role. You still have to be a leader. You still have to create a great environment and culture. However, the majority on almost all of your income will be maintained from you writing more business. So this is going to be a much quicker turnaround. So if you're wanting growth this quarter, if you're wanting growth this year, then adding an admin staff is going to be a much quicker, much faster turnaround time than adding a downline staff, because they require far less training and far less of like accountability for a lot of that stuff. But keep in mind, in order for you to maintain a high revenue and for order you to maintain profit, you need to make sure that adding a downline staff is allowing you to see more clients and is allowing you to make up for their salary or their pay with your additional sales. And Donald said that we have lost audio. If anybody else can still hear me, let me know. If you guys can still hear us, let me know. If you can't hear us, then panic. Okay, they're still saying they can hear us. Cool. Thank you, Donald. But yes, again, so you still have to have that managerial hat. You still have to manage somebody, but you're allowed to actually grow your own personal production in a much quicker time than if you were to add downline staff. You got to focus on what makes you productive and really pass the buck on what keeps you busy, because those are two very different things. So admin staff will focus on the systems and processes to ease workflow. There is a downside to that though. And there are a downside, again, to some of us more type A people. I know we say we're type B with type A tendencies. Mm-hmm. This is the type A tendency that we have. And what I'm talking about is your ability to give up a little control. If you micromanage admin, you are actually going the opposite direction. You can't micromanage the person that's supposed to take on your systems and processes, because you're just genuinely doubling your work. Right. So in order for somebody to genuinely take a load off of you, you do have to give up some control, and that only comes with an understanding of trust. I understand that trust does come with time, but don't hire somebody that you know that's like, oh, they're going to be a little bit difficult to manage, but they have great potential. If you have to micromanage them, it's actually really counterintuitive.
Yes.
So things that your admin team can be doing, things like they can be doing so many things. We kind of mentioned some, but like gathering pre-appointment information, asking for drug lists, asking for providers, things like that. Checking application status, running your social media, setting appointments, helping with claims and processing if you're working with ancillary products. They can focus on your retention practices, so doing follow-up phone calls, servicing your book of business, things like that. So there's a lot of stuff that you need to do to be a good agency, to be referable, to grow, but allows you have them do that so that you can continue to write more business.
Yes.
Dean says CRM management, things like that.
Yes, that is a huge list of stuff that you just named off, and those are all things that can be done with action without having to have an insurance license.
Mhm.
So it's adding an admin staff is allowing you to be able to focus on the stuff that makes you money, focus on the stuff that requires a license, and putting some of that responsibility on people who don't have a license, who don't need it, but takes up a huge portion of your time and helps you make money. So adding an admin staff is take a lot of consideration in who you're hiring. You have to have, it's a huge, you kind of mentioned it, huge amount of trust in this person who's doing a lot of this stuff, because they're kind of teeing it up for you.
For sure.
And a lot of times they're, if your admin staff is someone who is a receptionist, that person is a lot of times the first person that people see whenever they walk into the office, which is huge. That's basic psychology. First impressions are huge. So there's a lot of trust in that. I might be jumping a little bit, but I'm jumping a little bit. I do that.
It bears to be repeated, and Dean brings up an amazing point, which is you can't hire personality, but you can train on skill.
Yes.
Very important when it comes to hiring somebody. And it actually brings up this point a lot. A lot of people, and I've seen this pitfall happen a lot, because again, you see dollar signs, and you really need to understand the value of adding an admin, because a lot of individuals and agencies will try to hire an admin with the intentions of having them become agents later. Now, keep in mind, there is a huge difference between mindsets of I'm getting paid hourly or I'm getting paid salary. I'm here. There's comfort in that. There's less risk in that versus somebody who goes to a commission-based sale. Those are different types of people that are going to gravitate towards those positions. So a lot of times people will say, well, I'm going to hire an admin with the opportunity to change them to a downline later. One thing, your salespeople will hate to do your admin tasks, because they will know if I'm doing your admin tasks, I'm not able to grow my sales. Yeah. So if you have a downline style agent doing your administrative tasks, they will not stay, because you're taking their time doing things that will not make them money. Vice versa, if you're trying to get somebody who wants to have an hourly or a salary, they're going to be really upset and have a lot of anxiety around potentially switching to a commission-based job. They're there for a reason. They understand commissions is an option, but they chose the hourly for a reason. Now, you will have some individuals that'll see the potential and see the income opportunity and want to make that switch, and that's fine. You can offer that, you can guide them through that process, but don't hire admin with the expectations of having them become an agent.
Yes, I think that's the point here is never say never, but it's all about the expectation that you set up in the beginning. If you're hiring them for admin, have the expectation for you and set the expectation for them that they're there to do admin stuff.
Yes.
Things can happen, things can develop, especially a few years down the road whenever they've really got a hold on this Medicare thing and all that sort of stuff. But so never say never. We're not saying it can't happen, but it's a hard
it's a hard transition.
Yes.
It's a very hard transition.
Very different things. Yes. Very different things. Yes.
And again, just the one last thing I'll say about this is that there are agents, again, this agents that I work with 9,000 clients, their admin is, I will say their admin is licensed after some time working with them. They did get licensed, but their income isn't dependent on apps.
Right.
They get bonused if
yes.
they take applications and they write ancillary products or they write products. So their income is not dependent on that, but they are incentivized to do so. And I do believe in that.
That's
really
great.
like that process. Yes. But again, that person, their personality is going to, again, be resentful if you try to bait and switch them to a commission-based job.
Yes.
So last thing, again, when it comes to the administrative staff, guys, be aware of turnover. You're going to hear the same thing about this that you heard with the downline staff. Again, like Sadie mentioned, the great resignation right now is crazy. COVID has really, I would say, rerouted brains, has really reprogrammed how we think of what we expect from our employer. So it used to be pay them well, offer benefits, and then you could treat them like garbage. Not that anybody on here would, but that was kind of what the old expectations were. Now it's all about, what is your culture like? Is your admin staff, do they feel seen? Do they feel appreciated? Do you offer a level of flexibility for them? Are they able to go to their kids' soccer games? Are they able to, feel okay if they're sick to stay home? And like we mentioned, we said this really hard with the downline team, but when you're working with admin staff, making sure that they feel trained, making sure that they have direction, and making sure that they feel like they have the resources to be successful on that job.
Right.
So, and oh, Brian's asking about my fingernails. I'm taking up a new hobby and it's doing nails, Brian. Make me feel good about it because I'm new at it. I'm not a creative person. So again, making sure, guys, beware of turnover when it comes to your admin team as well.
Yes.
Keep in mind, for all new hires, Sadie was hitting on this earlier, your staff reflects your agency. They're the first person that they see. Their majority of the interaction should be coming from your admin team. So if they have a bad experience with their admin, they're going to know, oh, I don't like the robber agency because that doesn't even exist anymore, but I don't like that, or Ruber, whatever your name is, Brian, agency, because the lady at the front desk was really, really mean to me. Doesn't matter the experience they had with the agent, they really reflects the entire agency. Next, market your agency, not just you. The point of admin team is to free up your time. So if every single time a client calls in, they insist they have to talk to you because they don't trust your admin team, then it really doesn't free up your time completely. So when you're doing your advertising, you're doing your marketing, make sure you're not saying, hey, it's the Olivia Richardson agency, come talk to Olivia Richardson. It's, hey, it's the Richardson agency, come work with our team. Yes. Making sure you're really transitioning focus from you to focus on your team. And determine your pay structure, make it a system, make sure it's fair, and make sure there cannot be room for discrepancies or room for opinions as to what somebody should be getting paid. So I say that more so be really careful of your bonus structures, that your bonus structures aren't opinion based and they are number or fact based.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, one thing I do want to say as well, going back to the very first note, is also keep in mind that your staff reflects your agency. Make sure that you're hiring people or maintaining people who are willing to work with your system and processes as well. I know earlier we kind of talked about how, leave some room for them to feel the way that, what I mean, work the way that they need to, but also if there's someone that's coming in and is not respecting your system and processes and not fitting in with your culture and that sort of stuff, that reflects your agency for more people that you hire on as well. That reflects internally. So keep that in mind as well, but that's all I have on this page.
Beautiful. Nailed it. Woo! So guys, that is what we have. I would love to know if you guys expected this, if you guys are like, ooh, I was really thinking downline, maybe I should take the admin route first. If you're like, no, this really puts in concrete that I'm going the right direction, that I do want to add admin or I do want to add downline. I'd love to see kind of, if you guys don't mind putting in the questions box, just kind of your comments about if this was something that you feel like was worth, I don't want to say worth the time, because like even if we talked about unicorns all day, it's worth hanging out with us,
which we could do, by the way,
for days. But we really would like to know, if from right now, if you guys don't mind letting me know what direction you think you're going to be heading next. Are you going to be adding downline, or are you going to be adding administrative staff? Or you could just genuinely ask us a question too. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, threats, and or promises, put them in that questionnaire box. We are able to answer, and if we don't know the answer, we absolutely know people who do know the answer.
Yes. Also, this was kind of, some of you might be on here and be like, oh, this was a little bit more 101 than what I was expecting. We wanted to keep it at the very basis because I think a lot of people expect these kind of conversations to be what's actually 201. They forget the basics, they forget the basic questions that they want to ask, or that they need to ask before hiring on some. So even if this is kind of 101, we hope that everyone learns something on here. Also, let us know if this is a topic. This isn't salesy, or this is like running an agency. So let us know if you want more different trainings on that. We actually do have a whole section on our university page that talks about running an agency, building an agency. So there is more 201 stuff on there, kind of dives in a little bit more to the LOA sort of stuff, sub-agent, that sort of stuff. But let us know if you like this kind of training, if you want more of it. Yeah, we want to
Yeah.
hear.
So again, on our university, you just go to smsteam.net, click the training tab. On the sales, there's a side there that talks about agency training. We have a video on there that's top 6 ways to keep your downline agents happy. We have a video on there that's LOA versus sub agents. We have a video on there that's again, this content, but more in depth about should I add downline or should I add administrative staff. So we have a lot of content on our university about this exact topic. I know Michael said this really validated a lot of what he was saying. It was a really good point to talk about how if you're adding LOAs or adding downlines, your personal production will take a hit, at least for the first year. Awesome. Yes, and Dean says many of our great producers are lost on the business side. Great salespeople are bad at paperwork. They want to get out there and they want to sell, and anything that stops them between selling something is they're just not going to do it. I mean, I've been doing this for a long enough time. I know how that works. So that's something to keep in mind too. If you're a great salesperson, you really will need to invest some skill into growing your management and coaching skills.
Yes.
Jim asks, just curious, would you recommend hiring someone who is kind, ethical, and has a good work ethic, or someone who has education and experience? Good, hardworking attitude is everything. I will tell you this. I actually, whenever we hire for senior marketing specialists team, we don't look at education and we really don't look at experience, because especially when we're looking at a sales style position, a lot of people with previous sales experience will actually be more difficult to work with because they're not as easy to mold. They're not as easy to show new systems and new processes. So education and experience, when it comes to a position like in sales or a position in the administrative staff, we don't look at that hardly at all. We genuinely don't. It's all about personality, attitude, work ethic, and my favorite people to hire are people who I see doing a job like a waitress, a teller, somebody who is doing a service industry work, and then we hire them.
Olivia, just say that I'm your favorite person.
So Sadie's my favorite person that I hired, yes. But you get to see them when it's like when they're in adversity. You get to see them when it's like as a worker. If they're sitting behind the counter on their phone, don't hire that person. Hire them whenever they don't expect anything out of you other than they just want to give you good customer service.
Yes.
Dean says, that's why I have a job. Skills can be taught. Yes.
That is true. Skills can be taught. And also people, I think that's one thing to really highlight is, or to look out for, kind of like buzzwords and stuff, is willing to learn, because they can have a really, they can have a really positive attitude. They can have all that sort of stuff, but it's a special skill. It's a special quality of someone who is willing to learn, likes to learn, that sort of stuff. And that's across the board, no matter what job it is, downline or admin staff or whoever you hire onto your agency. So yeah.
For sure. And I would also take into consideration when you're adding downline or adding staff, again, it has nothing to do with age. Refuse to hire millennials. Don't refuse to hire baby boomers, because it all is about attitude and your willingness to, again, work as a team and your coachability. So I wouldn't say that there is an age group to work with or an age group to avoid. It's just all about that personality.
Yes.
So we did have a question on here. Again, guys, continue to ask your questions. I'm really close to the camera. But I know we had a question on here. We'd love to know more about LOAs and sub-agents and the difference between theirs. Dean says he would love more of this type of training. And I want to get to your sub-agent versus downline. But I did see a question. Robin was asking, where can I find competitive compensation structures for the admin transitioning into licensing? So Robin, that's actually something that we've actually had a lot of people on our captive side do, and kind of see like what that looks like. So our team can have conversations with you. It's hard to say competitive because what's competitive in mid-Missouri is not going to be competitive in Colorado. It's not going to be competitive in Arizona. So you need to look at what an admin person can make in your area versus what an agent will make in your area and things like that. But we've had those conversations of what a good payment structure would look like from a person transitioning or a person who wants to get bonused, an admin person that wants to get bonus for their sales. So again, the last thing, we do have a video on LOA versus sub-agent on our video. The biggest difference, sub-agent, the upline, or you the agent, if you have a sub-agent, you don't own the business. You only own the override on that. You can determine how many points you receive off of a person's business that they write, but if they leave, they own the business. You don't have any right to that business that they write. However, they get paid by the company, and you don't have to worry about the taxes, and you don't have to worry about the accounting for that. LOA, much more control for the agent, much more control for the agency, I should say. An LOA, a license only agent, you own the business, you get all the commissions, you decide to pay what you want to pay the person, so you can either pay them a percentage, you can pay them a set fee, you decide what they want to pay. If they leave, you still own the business, you own the rights, the servicing rights, all of that. But again, it could potentially, if you don't have the right systems and processes, you're dealing with the accounting, you're dealing with the payments, you're dealing with the taxes on that. So just keeping all that in mind.
Yes, I will link that video in the follow-up email, so that way you can watch that, and also just link that whole page, because I think that's a page some people forget that we have.
For sure.
So yeah, we can definitely, we're here to help you start your business. We're here to help you maintain it, to grow it. We even have the ability to help you leave the industry as well. So yeah.
Just as important. Yeah, we like to make sure we help agents in all stages of owning an agency.
Yes.
Well, appreciate you guys so much for hanging out with us. If you do have any more questions, again, you reach out to our team, visit our website, visit our university, and of course, if you don't want a phone call, speak now, forever hold your peace, but our team will be reaching out to you, just wanting to get some feedback, wanting to hear from you, and wanting to make sure that you got everything that you needed out of today's training. Yes, Michael, and of course, we'll be more than happy to do more trainings like this. Actually, next week we are doing the MedSup versus Medicare Advantage, what's best for you, what's best for your clients type deal. But again, check out the university. There's a ton of training on agency ownership there.
Yes, for sure.
Awesome. All right, well, we will see you next time. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you, and of course, we appreciate your partnership.
Yes, thank you. Have a good one.